Number 1. Cop gets caught smuggling drugs. It's not often that we see cops getting arrested by their fellow officers. But with great power comes great responsibility. Some officers like playing fast and loose with their authority, and as a result, they sometimes get in a heap of trouble. Case in point, the Bexar County Sheriff's Corporal Armando Trevino, who was caught making a drug deal while in uniform. Back in May 2019, Public Integrity Unit investigators intercepted a phone call between a jail inmate and another person attempting to arrange a drug deal to smuggle narcotics into the jail facility. After the phone call was intercepted, the San Antonio Police Department, the FBI, IRS, Texas Rangers, and the Bexar County Sheriff's Office all got involved in a full-fledged investigation into Trevino's activities. Sheriff Javier Salazar reports that the investigation team surveilled Trevino and tracked him to his meeting spot with another suspect named Rudy Anthony de la Cruz. The meeting took place at a gas station at Broadway Street and Loop 410. Once the drug transaction was completed, officers swooped in and arrested both men. The surveillance team observed a narcotics transaction taking place, and they swooped in and placed both under arrest, Salazar said. The deputy was in uniform at the time of his arrest, and he had a weapon present, although he is not a peace officer. It was pretty clear to everybody that he was on his way to work to smuggle these drugs into the Bexar County Jail, but we placed him under arrest before that could be completed. Trevino was dishonorably dismissed from the force on June 27, 2019, a month after the arrest took place. According to Salazar, the officers recovered heroin and Suboxone from Trevino and his accomplice. The former corporal had been an officer for 5 years, and the sheriff believes that he's been running his drug smuggling side gig for a good portion of time now. I can tell you he's very resourceful, Salazar said. He went to great lengths to conceal his crimes. The sheriff also had some comments on the officer's actions where he said, quite frankly, this suspect breached the public trust, he said, referring to the former deputy. It's not something we can tolerate. This case had strong ties to organized crime and continues to. FBI Special Agent in Charge Christopher Combs also gave credit to Salazar for his focus on rooting out public corruption. We've worked very long in this case today with the Sheriff's Office, Combs said. Today's case would not have come to fruition if it had not been for the Sheriff's Office and Sheriff Salazar. He has supported the FBI in every one of our corruption investigations, and without his support, we could not move forward on these cases. Trevino has now been indicted formally on 6 charges for a range of crimes. Some of the charges against Trevino accuse him of engaging in organized criminal activity, bribery, and possession with the intent to deliver a controlled substance. Number 2. Police captain gets tipsy. Earlier this year, an Oklahoma City police captain was pulled over and arrested for driving under the influence and repeatedly asked the officer to turn off his body camera during the investigation. Sergeant Christopher Skinner pulled over Captain James Matthew French, 55, at midnight on March 12th after allegedly seeing his SUV swerving and making a turn without signaling. In body camera footage released by the Oklahoma City Police Department on Thursday, French is seen sitting in his vehicle in the driveway of the home he claims to live in with his mother. As the officer approaches the SUV, he asks French if he's been drinking, to which he tells him,
I'm a captain on the police department.
What police department?
Oklahoma City.
French then seemingly pointed to his chest and whispered to the officer to turn the camera off. The sergeant was a bit confused by the request. He ignored it at first and continued to question the driver about how much he had to drink. But French seemed pretty hesitant. He went silent for a bit, but when the officer repeated himself, French again made the request.
Please.
Huh? I'm not turning my camera off.
Okay.
Seeing that the officer is not responding to his request, French finally comes out of his vehicle. Officer Skinner continues to question him about his night and where he'd been. French told him that he was at a poker game and had 3 or 4 beers, the latest about 2 hours before the traffic stop. The officer then asks him,
You think you should drive him?
No, but I came from 4 blocks.
Sergeant Skinner then asked French to complete the mandatory field sobriety tests. The drunken police captain, however, was struggling quite terribly. He was unable to keep his balance on the walking test and knew that he was in trouble now. French again pleaded to the officer to turn his camera off. The officer told French that he will turn it off once he was done with the investigation. However, French was insistent with his request, saying that he just wants to talk to the officer and reiterated that he was a police captain. Sergeant Skinner replied, I'm a sergeant, and I've taken an oath to uphold the law.
I don't show favoritism to anyone, regardless. I don't care if you're a gangbanger or the President of the United States.
Skinner continues on with some more field tests, but French fails to complete them. so the officer was left with no choice but to put him in cuffs. Once the cuffs were on, the sergeant finally turned his body cam off. According to an incident report, French was arrested and booked on charges of driving under the influence of alcohol and failure to signal the intention to turn. Chief Wade Gorley of the Oklahoma City Police Department praised the arresting officer's professionalism despite the insistent requests by the police captain to turn his camera off.
The officer did exactly as he should have and handled it very professionally, in my opinion.
As far as how the officer responded, he did exactly as he should have, Gorley said. The investigation into French's arrest is ongoing, but Gorley said the captain has been placed on administrative leave. The probe has also revealed that French was driving a city-owned SUV during this incident. Number 3, a registered sexual predator. This one gets a bit uncomfortable, so brace yourselves. Jalen Devon Fleer, an officer from the San Diego County Sheriff's Jail and Court Services Unit, was placed under arrest back in 2020 for engaging in sexual acts with a young girl. The arrest came after almost 4 months of investigation into the former officer's activities. This case was brought to the attention of the authorities in April 2020 when San Diego County Crime Stoppers received a tip-off about an unidentified man who had engaged in inappropriate acts with a minor. The Chula Vista police promptly launched an investigation and found that 4 victims were involved, all between the ages of 9 and 14. However, prosecutors alleged that Fleer contacted more than 40 other minors, mostly through Snapchat, soliciting them for sexual favors, but investigators were unable to track them all down to verify their ages. All of these incidents happened in a 2-week period between March and April 2020. Deputy District Attorney Jalen Wang revealed that Fleer specifically sought out young girls, offered them money to meet him, and encouraged them to arrange for their young friends to meet him too.
He tells multiple 12-year-old girls, "Do you have any younger friends who are interested in older men?"
Wang said he spread the net very wide. He really just tried to reach as many young girls as possible. Wang also disclosed that Fleer told multiple girls, "Do you have friends? I'll give you money. The younger, the better." The victims were afraid of the potential consequences of discovering they had been talking to a law enforcement officer. Fleer didn't hide the fact that he was a police officer from these young girls. In fact, he actually showed it off. He sent some of them pictures of himself in his uniform and even identified himself as a sheriff's deputy. In early May, internal affairs investigators approached Fleer and took him off duty from the county jail. During the investigation, Fleer was removed from his post at San Diego Central Jail and placed on desk duty. It was also reported that he had no on-duty contact with the public after being reassigned. Fleer had been with the Sheriff's Department for only over 5 years. On July 24, 2020, Fleer was charged with 20 sex offenses involving 4 minor victims. A year later, on May 7, 2021, the former deputy pled guilty to all counts. Judge Michael Popkins was horrified by the former officer's acts. Giving his remarks, the judge said, "I have never seen a more despicable set of facts as I've seen in this case." The final verdict at the trial for Fleer was a sentence of 12 years in state prison with no probation. On top of that, he was made to register as a sex offender for the rest of his life. On the date of Fleer's guilty plea, his attorney, David P. Shapiro, said in a statement, "While Mr. Fleer first privately accepted responsibility for his improper actions quite some time ago, today was the first step toward publicly apologizing to his friends and family, to law enforcement, and most of all, to the victims and their families." Jalen hopes today's guilty pleas provide at least some relief to all those involved, knowing the victims will not have to publicly come forward and testify at a preliminary hearing or at a trial. He also said Fleer voluntarily enrolled in a treatment program starting last spring to begin what is going to be a long path to recovery and rehabilitation to ensure he never puts himself, and more importantly, anyone else, in harm's way again. Let's hope that's true. Subscribe to the channel if you want to keep up with the updates in the case. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time.